Okay. Repeat the beginning of that because I didn't hear it.
Intel Core 2 Duo, 2.2 gigahertz.
What specs are you reading for though? What is the requirement for?
That's the recommended requirements,
Mhm.
and it plays the
And
game 30 frames per second on very high.
now flip it around now when Crisis was meant to be really on medium or high. When I had an AMD dual core, this was the first generation of AMD dual cores, and I had an 8800 GT. I could get between minus. The only thing I didn't have maxed out was anti-aliasing. I had between 25 and 30 frames per second with everything else maxed out. At 720p, but everything else was maxed out. So you can't always go by, minimum or required or recommended specs because technically that was actually running better than it should have with everything on very high.
I just don't understand how you couldn't run this game. I heard your specifications of your PC, and it just doesn't make sense.
Dude, Crisis, even on my machine now, still, even at 720p, I can't get anti-aliasing all the way up. I'm like at 2x or 4x. And I'm still at like 28 or 30 frames per second at 720p. Crisis is a
Well,
fucking beast,
you
man.
like the consoles, right? You should be used to 2x and 4x.
I am used to 2x and 4x. But I'm saying what I'm saying is that game, if it's making my hardware sweat now, which is a billion times more powerful than what I was using in the HP, how is it not believable that when I was looking down the sites, it would drop down ridiculous amount to a virtually still frame rate?
It just doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm hearing what you're saying, but it just doesn't make sense. There's something wrong with your hardware. You can't run Quake, but you're talking about
Two
your.
different sets of hardware, though. That doesn't. No, 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 no. That's two different sets of hardware. The HP is something with Crisis, and this is
You said it's making
totally
your current PC choke.
what Crisis is making my current PC choke. Yeah, when I have everything set through the roof, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with my hardware.
Are you running on very high?
I'm running it on very high. Everything through the roof except for anti-aliasing is at like 4x. 2x or
But
4x, like I said before.
but you couldn't run it on medium, and you had a PC before that met the requirements.
Yes. Indeed, I did.
This is going around in circles. I think we
It
should.
is definitely going around in circles.
Yes.
I don't understand. I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with this before, man, where you meet the minimum requirements. I mean, this isn't the first time with the system either, and I'm sure it's not the first time with you. I
Uh,
mean, I guess you're trying to catch me in a lie, but that's cool.
you do sound like Seth Rogen.
I know I don't even know who the fuck Seth Rogen is, and I've been hearing that ever since I made a YouTube video. I swear to God. Anyway, all right, we need to move on to something else because we'll sit here all day, and my armpits are starting to sweat, so that could get dangerous. Um, the other thing you brought up is, I guess maybe I didn't understand it because I guess I went at it wrong. What was the whole thing with PC games are on consoles, consoles are on PC games? What was your deal with
You
that?
see,
And maybe I need to
three
refine it a
kilobytes
little
is
bit.
point. Their point comes from having to own all the consoles. They're going to use all the consoles to argue against the PC. So if there's a certain aspect into which when they're using the 360 against the PC, they're going to switch to PS3. And when that doesn't work, they're going to switch to Wii. Which is why I was saying, well, if you're going to talk about having this game and this franchise, you better have all the freaking consoles. Because if you're doing it one against the other, the PC's automatically going to win. But even against all the next gen consoles, the PC can win against them. The PC has more critically acclaimed exclusive titles in the last 2 years than the 360 and PS3 got since their launch.
Okay. See, I see that to a small point, but at the same time, the PC doesn't get the exclusivity of certain things that like the 360 or the PS3 does.
And
You know,
vice versa. They
mm,
don't get the games that are only available on the PC. They don't get to play Amnesia. They don't get to play Crisis. They're going to play a downgraded version of Crisis 2. They don't get a lot of games.
there's a lot yet, but there's even more games, and we can look up numbers. There's even more games on the PC that consoles that the PC doesn't get. You know, I mean, if you look at Steam, let's look at it right now. Okay. Hold on. Let's go to the store, for example. A lot of them are indie games, which, hey, if the game is quality, that doesn't matter. But those aren't the games that are going to draw, in most cases, even people like me in. Okay? You know, I understand.
There's games like Darkfall, there's games like Dawn Discovery, there's Demigod, Black Shark, EVE Online. There's a lot of games out there. Penumbra, Amnesia, Napoleon Total War, the Sherlock Holmes games, Shattered Horizon, Spore. Even though Spore is like...
Shattered Horizon is shit, but okay.
Even though like Spore is like on, I think, the Nintendo DS, or at least a version of it. But there are tons of games that you can't get anywhere but on PC. Sins of the Solar Empire, The Witcher. There's plenty of them.
The thing about it is, though, is that, you know, you're dealing with certain you're getting into it. It almost seems like the PC becomes more of like an MMO and turn-based machine. And what happened is that now with all the other titles like shooters and bigger titles that people want to play, like me, you know, it kind of, they're just thrown on there. For example,
well, there's plenty of action games coming out next year, like Red Orchestra, Natural Selection 2, Warface, Firefall, Age of Chivalry, Bounty Arms, Tactical Intervention. There's tons of games that are not shooters and not just strategy games. There's RPGs, there's MMOs, there's simulators, there's racers, there's adventure games.
Okay. Let me ask you a question, and this is going to be an interesting twist. BioShock Infinite, what system is that actually being developed for, and what is it being ported to?
I'm not too familiar with the BioShock Infinite information. I saw the trailer, and I can't wait for it, but I assume it's on like all platforms.
It's PS3. It's being developed for the PS3, and then it's going to be ported to the 360 and to the PC. The thing about it is that, yes, there is a bunch of critically acclaimed games that do come out for the PC, but the problem is that, yes, there's RPGs, but it's just still a smaller niche market because either the developers, because they're independent, don't push themselves out there enough. But what happens is when the big developers, and I don't just buy big games because they're big games, like, that's just retarded. But when the big developers come out with a game, the reason that their main focus is on the consoles is because, once again, even people like me sometimes, I just want to play the game, put it in, and use it. That's why do you think Crysis 2 is coming out for the consoles? It's coming out, yes. Is it going to be an inferior version? You're right. It is going to be probably far inferior. It's probably going to be like 576p native resolution. But I guarantee you it'll outsell the PC 3-1 because people don't want to deal with the issues. Like I said, I'm still having bugs with the original Crysis now.
So now we're talking sales.
Not just talking sales. But the sales come from the fact that people don't want to deal with the stress. And there still is, man. And like I said to you, it's getting better. And I have to thank Steam for it. But there still is issues with gaming on the PC. And yes, there is on the consoles too, but it's far few and less between.
All right, let me stop you there real quick.
Okay.
You were talking about independent developers, you know, staying on the PC and everything and having small games, small niche games. They have those on the consoles, like the Atelier series. That's only on PS3, and the Atelier series is 10 games. They have 10 games, haven't even gotten 1 million sales total, and they still make games. You don't need to have a bunch of sales in order for a company to want to make another game. They'll just do it if they have the money or the investors.
Yeah,
and on the PC versions can sell maybe even just 20% or even 30% of what the console version will sell. And if they do it at digital distribution, they'll still make money. Tons of money. A new game on the PC gets the developers at least $38 if they sell it for $49.99. But on the consoles at retail, $59.99, the developers only make $8.
But even with that less turnaround, even with the, there's not as much profit margin because the volume is so much more. That's why there's more exclusives for the consoles.
There's more exclusives for the PC.
Yeah, but you're talking indie exclusives, though. You're not talking things that's going to draw people like me in. You're talking
Okay,
indie RPG.
this
What's
is
up?
you and me. We can't speak for everyone else. If someone sees an indie game they like, they can play it on their PC. They don't have to have an ultra powerful PC to play certain indie games.
No, you don't even need an ultra powerful PC to play something huge like World of Warcraft. You need a Pentium 4 like 1.8 gigahertz. But if what the thing is getting at, and what this whole debate is about, is if you're one of those people who is even hardcore but not into the tech of it, is having the PC worth it? And that's where I say no, because it's just you're not. There's going to be issues that come up, even if they're few and far between, that you're just not going to be able to get around. It's even happened to me where I got to sit there and reinstall my whole damn operating system because I just can't find the other way around it.
Now, let me just stop you there. Let me just stop you there. Hearing you say like things on the PC aren't worth it, after you told me you had an HP gaming PC and you're still having issues running Quake, that doesn't really hold much substance.
Yeah, man, but you know that legacy games or older games that was in GL. That game's running GL. You know that older games can give you issues. You know that. Come on, you can't say that.
I still play Roller Coaster Tycoon. I still play my Sonic 3 and Knuckles old CD-ROM for Windows 98. I can still play the Jumpstart games. Those little fun.
I still play the original Half-Life that was meant for 95 and 98. So I
still play Yukon Trail. Oregon Trail.
Like I just said, Half-Life 98, the original one, not Half-Life 2. I can play that no problem. I can play legacy games too.
But you can't play Quake.
Can't play Quake. Quake 3 will not. Quake 3 Arena will not start up, and neither will Quake 2. Quake 1 plays with bugs.
Quake runs perfectly in Firefox and an internet browser, but it doesn't play correctly on your PC.
Yes, and man, you know that can happen. You know that can happen. You know, I understand why you're doing it right now, but I'm sure it's happened to you. I'm sure it has.
I just hope Pong doesn't crash your PC.
Yeah, I highly doubt that it will.
I
highly doubt that it will. I mean, that's the thing, because here's the other thing that you get into now. Now, revisions are something different. The other problem is that it's with Windows 7, it's alleviated slightly, but everyone has different hardware. There's so many different variations. Okay, ATI and NVIDIA are those two people making chipsets right now and developing, the card standards. But you have so many different video card developers or manufacturers, so many different motherboard manufacturers, and so many different variations in each of those motherboards that's the reason why you run into issues. There's no matter how talented the development team is, you cannot make a game run perfect on every single setup out there. And that's what the biggest thing is, and that's why PC gaming, even though it's still strong, I don't think it will ever die. That's why console gaming will always have a one-up on it, because you only have, revised or not, one set of solid hardware to develop for with each console developer. PS3, no matter how many
revisions... Let me stop you right there. These developers are not developing for this piece of hardware, that piece of hardware. They're just looking for certain requirements of the hardware. As long as you have a graphics card that has that right amount of memory, as long as your processor can push this many gigahertz, as long as you have this much RAM, you can play the game. They're not going down, let's look for this, Radeon, we gotta look for all the different types of Radeons, and we gotta go over all these Intels. No, they're not doing that. They're just looking for the capabilities of the hardware. You can buy whatever hardware you want. They're not developing for your hardware. They're looking for the requirements.
Doesn't matter though, but because there are so many different, you make games with general requirements, but because then now, you have to deal with multiple different drivers for the video cards, for the audio cards, even hell for the
video
CPU.
Drivers get updated like once every 2 years, and all you do is right-click driver, update, downloads by itself, installs, restart, you're done. You probably won't see another in maybe a year or two. Is that difficult?
Okay, so when I got BioShock back in '08 for the PC, and there was an AMD dual core timer issue, and I had to wait, and it